Okay. Thanks for this introduction. Welcome to this webinar, Optimizing Conjoint for Mobile, with a subtopic mixed profile swiping. So what are we going to talk about today? Today we're going to try to solve an issue. And the issue is that 20% of research is currently done on mobile phones. In some countries even more, and it's only increasing at the moment. And as in SKIM, we're specialized in conjoint research, but we notice that the conjoint usually doesn't really fit well on a mobile screen, especially if we have a lot of attributes to test or multiple concepts. There's been done research before, let's say 3x3 solution by SKIM that was mainly for less than 6 or 5 attributes. So we have to try to solve that still. But if we say, well, we don't do conjoint on a mobile phone, that means it might be hard to reach the right target audience. So it could be that we don't reach enough respondents or that our sample is skewed. So that's a problem. And for the MaxDiff, we have developed our swipe MaxDiff, but for conjoint, we had not developed a proper solution we're really happy with. But today, we're going to tell you how we solved your problem. So first of all, we're going to introduce a new, better way of doing conjoint research on mobile phones. So how do we do that? We totally fit a conjoint exercise on one screen, and it will be more intuitive and engaging than there at the moment. So we think the conjoint is now ready for mobile sampling. And in this webinar, I'm going to show you how. So what is this webinar about? We got 5 topics. So first of all, we're going to show the sawtooth conjoint solutions at the moment that we're using for our mobile research. And then we're going to introduce our new SKIM swiping concept. Then we're going to dive a bit deep into theory. So first of all, 3 concepts conjoints versus 2 concepts, full profile versus partial profile. And after the theory, we're going to test our new solution on real respondents. And at the end, we're going to draw some conclusions and give you some recommendations. So if we look at Sawtooth has developed in the previous years, so with the new Lighthouse 9.5, they made it possible to have one concept on a screen. And here's an 2 examples. So the first example gives you an example without or with attribute labels. Where you can see one concept, and on the top you see their arrows, so you can go to the next concept and another concept, so they're to compare, but they're not on the same screen. On the second example, you see that we've deleted the attribute labels, and it actually creates more space on the screen. You can show more attributes if you want to, but still maximum 1 concept on the screen, and even the number of attributes is not 10, but there are more than at least with the attribute labels. Now, there's another solution from Sawtooth, and that's actually that concepts are below each other. So that what you see on the left side, that you can actually touch a button and you go to the next concept, or you can swipe. And here, there's more space on the screen to show more concepts, or more attributes, but still only 1 attribute, and it's just hard to make a comparison between 3 screens. So if the question is which one would be best, which concept is worst, you actually need to go to 3 screens and then compare over the 3 screens, which is kind of hard for respondents to do. So SKIM, we thought, okay, this might not be the approach that we think is best, and it's also hard to explain to our clients that respondents can actually make the trade-off over the 3 screens. So we came up with something else. And we're going to talk now about our SKIM mobile conjoint setup. So what are the challenges that we're facing? So first of all, it's hard to fit 3 concepts on the screen. Well, you saw there was just 1 concept on previous screens. But we think with stacking and minimizing wording, we could already win a bit of space there. Secondly, we think the answer can be made more intuitive. So swiping for best worst, it actually there's no need for the best worst button, so you win a bit of space there, and we think it's also more intuitive for respondents. But then still there's the issue how to deal with a lot of attributes. So with 6, we can probably still fit it on one screen. But if we have more than 6 attributes, we thought, well, probably we can do something with partial profile, where we hide some attributes for each concept and then rotate it over the screens. There's an issue with partial profile according to theory, and that's the statistical robustness. So how do we deal with that? So if we believe that if we include some tasks with 1 or 2 concepts, we can actually deal with this. And so you can show again the full profile again. You just have a one concept is a dual response none, so would you actually buy the product, yes or no, and 2 concepts is a trade-off between just two concepts on the screen. So which is your preferred? I think if we combine that with partial profile, we can do something to deal with this statistical robustness. And last but not least, which is not in at the moment, is our implicit measurements. So we have our Unspoken method, which takes into account some of these features, so as a reaction time, and in the future maybe even eye tracking, and that might be something that we can use for Conjoint as well. It's not implemented in our current setup. So how does this look like, this SKIM swipe CBC? So first of all, we have the partial profile task. Here we asked a respondent to swipe the favorite and the least favorite plan to the left or the right. So there are 3 plans on top of each other, T-Mobile, KPN, and Vodafone. And we put on the left side, we put their brand, we put the price of the product. And on the right, we have just a small, short wording of other attributes. So we can put 4 attributes on the right, maybe even 5, and 2 on the left. So just putting it smart on the screen, we think we can fit 3 concepts and ask for the best and the worst. But still, in case you have more than 6 attributes, you can use partial profile, but then we said we want to do some full profile as well. So here in the second example, there are only 2 concepts on the screen, and we just ask the respondent, can you please select your best? And following this full profile, you can actually, about the winner, ask, okay, if this was the product available in the market, would you actually buy it, yes or no? And that would give us information on the none. So that's the don't buy option. So this is the combination of these 3 will be the concept that we want to test in this survey. Now, here's a slide that you can actually try it out at home. You don't have to do it now, but it will be in the deck that will be sent to you. So you can actually try out the differences between the current solutions and our new solution. Now, the third part of this webinar is actually about a bit of theory. So we're going to compare 2 versus 3 concepts, full versus partial profile. So first of all, 2 versus 3 concepts. I only have 1 slide on this one because I think it's pretty obvious. So on a desktop, I think the comprehension in both cases is fine. Respondents can just compare across 3 concepts to select what is the best. So usually that's a chosen solution, especially since you double the information. If you ask about if you know that A is better than B and C, you've got 2 comparisons. If you ask, is A better than B, you only got 1 comparison. So you got double the information if you just add 1 concept to the screen. So therefore, there are hardly any conjoint studies, at least at SKIM, done with just 2 concepts. So therefore, we prefer to have 3. Then there's the comparison between the full and partial concepts. So in literature, usually full profile is preferred, but there are some benefits to only showing partial profile. So if we look at the full profile column, the benefits are, well, there are more realistic descriptions and has greater predictive validity as you show the full product on the screen. A downside is that respondents might actually shortcut the compensatory choice process. So if there are too many attributes on the screen, they're going to focus on the ones that are actually important to them, which could actually not be a downside because in reality they might do the same thing. So it's just something we noted here. Then we got partial profile. where there are some cognitive advantages and also even some statistical and behavioral advantages. But the issue is that usually, well, first of all, larger sample sizes or more tasks are required to get the same information from a respondent. And even further is that, and even more severe, is that the complex presentation might bias the final part with utilities. And especially for price, that tends to carry less weight. So if respondents only see part of the product, suddenly they're gonna focus less on price and you get less weight than when you show a full profile concept. So then we did some tests with simulated data. So it was not the test on real respondent, it was taken from an old telecom survey where we did a full profile conjoint. It has even 11 attributes, 10 tasks, and was done on more than 2,000 respondents. So what are we going to test here? We're going to test the different methods. And for that, we're going to take the original utilities that we calculated based on the answers of those respondents. We're going to create new statistical designs that we will let a respondent through. So each respondent, the utilities of a respondent represent that respondent. We let them through a new design. We impute the answers for them. So we're going to calculate what would they have answered. We're going to estimate the utilities again. So we get new utilities from these respondents where we already calculated utilities for. And with those utilities, we're going to actually try to predict the original task. So we're going to see, okay, with these estimated utilities, how well can we predict the original task that we have the actual answers on? And that's actually a hit rate calculation. And we're going to try to get as high as possible with this hit rate. So we're just going to compare with different methods. So first of all, we compare 3 concepts, full profile. So respondents go through 3 concepts with a full, where they see the full profile on screen, and we ask them for the best and the worst. So those are answers we imputed with the utilities from these respondents. And then the hit rate would actually be 92%. So we have a lot of information about the preference of those respondents. If we only ask best, we get a bit less information. So there's only 88.6% that we can predict correctly. And if we do only show them partial profile, so just 6 out of 11 attributes, and we ask them best worst again, we get 88.4%. With 3 concepts partial profile, we only ask the best option, we get 86.7%. And then the last one we compared is the 2 concepts, so we just ask them for the best, but we show a full profile and we get 83.8%. So that is quite low, and we actually try now to increase the number of tasks to get more information to get a better hit rate. So we did that for the bottom 3, and you see that the best worst partial profile, it climbed well, so all of them did, and they're getting closer to the range of 88 to 90%. They're not beating the top one, but with 20% of the tasks, the partial profile best worst is above 90% already. But you also see that with adding 5 tasks, you don't get that much more information of a respondent. Also, the bottom one, 2 concepts full profile, you gain 0.1%. So why let a respondents go through more than 15 tasks? Probably it's not worth their time. So here we kind of conclude, okay, if we do this in real life, let's just use 15 tasks for the bottom 3, and maybe only even 10 tasks for the top 2. So we went on to real respondents, and with the information we just gathered, we set up a survey. And this was not done on telecom, it was done on TV and internet. We have 6 times 200 respondents, which we distributed over 6 categories, which I'll tell you more about in the next slide. So first I want to just introduce the attributes. So we have provider, price, download speed, TV, calls, security package, internet on the road, additional services, and installation. And they all have between 2 and 6 levels. And we said, well, provider, price, and download speed, those were quite important in the study. So let's just keep them on the screen, even if we do partial profile, and TV till installation, attributes 4 to 9. For full profile, they were shown all the time, but in partial profile, those are the ones we hit 50% of the task of the time. Yeah, so of the task. All right, so how are we distributing those 6 times 200 respondents? So we did the survey on the traditional desktop, tablet, and mobile phone. We also on full profile, 3 concepts on screen, and we did 10 screens. Then we've got the 2 concept swipe, which we did full profile, 2 concepts on the screen, for 15 screens. So this is really for the bottom 3 are for mobile phones as well. And this is, if you remember the picture that I showed you a couple slides ago on how this would be set up, this was the middle one, 2 concepts, you just take the best. The 3 concepts partial swipe was the left picture there. So it was partial profile where we really had 3 concepts on the screen and we can ask for the best and the worst. And again, since we do not have as much information, we need to make up for the information on the traditional desktop, tablet, and mobile phone. We have to ask for respondents more tasks, so we have more screens there. And then the last, number 6, is actually a combination of 4 and 5. So that was actually the concept that we had in mind. Let's go for this mixed concept swipe, where we have 2 or 3 concepts on the screen, and we have 7 screens for the 2 concepts and 8 for the 3. And besides all those conjoint tasks, each respondent actually went through 6 due response non-tasks to get a read on a none, and we also have 2 holdout tasks. And those holdout tasks, actually everybody did the same holdout task, and with those tasks we're going to kind of compare which method works better than the other. So how well can we predict those holdout tasks? Before we actually do that comparison, those respondents actually went to the survey, and we just check a couple of things like age, time spent, and appreciation. So first of all, you see that the average age of the desktop and tablet respondents was a lot higher than the ones on mobile phone. And well, actually the sample in general was quite old in this study. No offense, but between 40 and 55 years on average. So there's already a difference in sampling. Now, if we have to look at the time spent on the conjoint, we see that on the desktop and tablet it was between 4.5 and 5.5 minutes. With mobile phones, the spread was a bit more. So the traditional mobile phone method, those are the new solutions in Lighthouse. Response actually, well, they took quite a lot of time. So it was almost 6 minutes, which actually also a good thing that we see that responses actually take the time to answer those questions. But we see with the conjoint swipe, we actually won a lot of time, especially with the 2 concept swipe, only 3.3 minutes. And also the other 2 methods were close to the desktop time. If we look at the appreciation scores, well, they're all quite nice. The survey wasn't too long, so everybody scored above 7.5, and actually the swipe with the 2 concepts was actually preferred overall. So it was good to see, and it can outperforms the traditional mobile phone solution that we have at the moment. Now we go into a bit more tricky numbers. So like I said, we had 2 holdout tasks. So first of all, we had the holdout task with 3 concepts, where we ask of these 3, which are the best and the worst. Well, I will only discuss the best here. Worst at the same structure. We saw that traditional desktop and tablet were predicting those tasks pretty good. Traditional mobile phone was actually at the lowest percentage, and our new swipe methods were somewhere in between. So not as good as desktop yet. Let's see how it went for the 2 concept swipe. So the holdout task for 2 concepts. Here the 2 concept swipe was actually doing really well. Scored almost just as much as the tablet, is in the range also with the desktop. And we see that the traditional mobile phone was not doing too bad here. But unfortunately, our 3 concept partial swipe and also the mixed concept swipe were not scoring that well. So it was actually number 6, if you remember, was the solution we were trying to go for here. So that was our our solution that we had in mind, but it scored pretty low on this hit rate. So we're not happy to see that. Then we looked, okay, on the mean absolute error. So how do we get there? So the holdout tasks were based on hit rate. So it's do you predict it right or wrong? So it's a 0 or 1. But actually you might be thinking, okay, how well can I predict with this sample the overall score? So if you put responses together in a simulator, you get an overall share of preference. And we just wanted to know, is the share of preference anywhere close to our holdout task? So we tried that for all these methods. We created some simulators, and we saw that actually traditional desktop and actually all traditional solutions were around 7-8% off. And we see that the two concept swipe is actually pretty nearby, as well as the mixed concept swipe. The partial swipe didn't do too well, but this gave us a bit of hope for our two concept swipes. So actually not the method that we're going for at the beginning, but it's looking quite well. Now we did one other comparison, and it was on the price sensitivity. So we saw how important is price in this study. How do respondents react to price changes? And we see the traditional desktop and tablet, actually it's around -1.4. And on mobile phone, it was around -0.8, 0.9, which is a bit lower. So it might have to do with the type of respondents, might be the way that they actually do the research. But we saw that the three concepts partial swipe was especially low, and that was one of the risks that we had in the beginning. Partial conjoint reduces the importance of price, and we see that here as well. So that only at -0.64, so that was really the lowest here. So what can we conclude from this research? So first of all, about the engagement. We see that mobile research reaches younger respondents, or just a different sample. And in this case, the average mobile phone user is 40 years old versus the 55 years old on desktop or tablet. About speed and pleasure, the mobile phone tasks were much better appreciated compared to the current mobile solution, and it was quite similar to that of the desktop respondents. And we said we need 50% more tasks for two concepts of partial profile swipe, and that actually can be done on the phone in the same time frame as desktop full profile with three concepts. So this research kind of justifies allowing more tasks on mobile phone compared to desktop. The second one is about utility structure. So we did first a theoretical test, and in a theoretical test we also just checked, okay, is there a difference between partial profile and full profile, between two versus three concepts? And in theory there wouldn't be. But in reality, when we tested it on the real respondents, we saw a couple of differences. So first of all, the importance of price is just lower on the mobile phone. And that might have to do with the sample. But partial profile actually overestimates the importance of the partial attributes. So we didn't only see that price was less important, but also the attributes that were hidden were also less important than average. So then we had the price importance and sensitivity. Those were especially low for the partial profile swiping. So that combined, those two were actually giving the partial profile not really a good score. And then we also tried to increase the number of tasks. Like I said, we had 10 tasks for full profile and 15 tasks for partial profile. And in literature, sometimes says, well, if you add the number of tasks, the price importance goes up. Well, for partial profile, we didn't see it, and we also didn't see it for the other swiping tasks. So that was a bit unfortunate, maybe. And then we have the non-share, which is lower on mobile phones. Well, we didn't share it really in this research, but with partial profile, apparently it also impacts the non-share in the simulator. So probably it's not really a good thing to use partial profile. And one thing I didn't tell you about in the test on the real respondents is actually if you add those worst tasks, so we had a best worst choice. If you analyze with only best, you can have the same utilities as you have with the best worst. So you didn't get much read from asking a worst. So actually we would recommend not to put this worst task in your survey with a conjoint. So just ask the respondents which one is preferred. Don't have to ask them about which one is not. So even though in theory it does help a couple of percentage points, but on real respondents it didn't. Now, last slide on the conclusion is the predictive validity. So it was not obvious which method actually works best. So we had the hit rate on the desktop, which was better than the mobile phone. But if we looked at the mean absolute error based on the simulator and the share of preference, mobile phone outperformed desktop, and especially the one with two concepts, swipe and the mixed profile swipe. So one thing that we did learn, what is better, is that the SKIM swiping method outperforms existing solutions for mobile conjoint in all possible ways. So what would be our recommendation? So our first recommendation is to combine your desktop conjoints with two concepts mobile swipe. So you will reach a wider target audience than computer tablet. That's the first advantage. The second advantage is that the swiping that we're suggesting is faster and much better appreciated than the other types of conjoint research. The third one is that the predictive validity of this two concept mobile swipe is actually comparable to that of desktop and tablet. So it justifies doing conjoint on mobile phones. And it outperforms the traditional mobile solution in all possible ways, like we just told on the previous slide. All right, thank you. Then this is the end of the webinar, and I'm just gonna see if we got some questions. All right, so I'm just gonna select a couple of questions. So first of all, is this swiping approach already available for new studies? Yes, it is available for new studies. So yeah, it has been developed now, and we're actually gonna try it out. We're gonna work with it on a new study that just came in one of our TST teams. All right, so many thanks for this presentation. Should we now use this technique for all our research? Well, yeah, maybe. So it kind of depends. If you have a lot of attributes and you want to test it on mobile phones, I really think this is the preferred solution. If you got less attributes, which could work with our 3x3 solution, which we presented a couple of years ago, that could be a way to go as well. It also kind of depends, okay, do you really need the sample on mobile phones? Do you expect them to be different? Because it takes a bit of extra time to set it up. But I think, yeah, from our perspective, this solution works well, and you just reach more sample while still having the same robustness in your utilities. So third question, isn't it a problem that the attributes are not displayed on the same row? Yeah, so like I presented before, our attributes our concepts are now stacked above each other, and indeed it's harder for respondents to maybe to compare the attributes between the concepts. We've seen previous research that also presented at conferences, and not only by us, that respondents can make the trade-off even though the attributes are not on top of each other, and they even did that with concepts not even on the same screen, what Sawtooth based their new solution on. So I think it's definitely possible, even now, because we even improved it and the concepts are on the same screen, and it might even be more realistic in some cases. So how many times in the real world do you see attributes nicely stacked next to each other by competitors? So it might actually be more realistic to stack them on top of each other than besides each other, but it might be research per research dependent what is the best solution here. All right, so I think there we leave it for now. And I hope you enjoyed the webinar. If there are any more, I see there are a couple more questions. Please keep sending the questions, and I'll answer them after this webinar. Thank you.